What is up, YouTube? It has been entirely too long, but I'm finally back, and I've got two series coming. This one's actually going to debut on Twitch, so if you want to come, twitch.tv/Spore. We'll be doing these more or less nightly for quite a while until we get through all 30 teams. We're going to be talking about new legends I'd love to see in MLB The Show 21. And then, starting next week, we're going to have a series of golds and silvers that I'd like to see in MLB The Show. Maybe some bronzes mixed in too. But I'm big on flashback cards that aren't necessarily top tier. Love all the diamonds they put out, but really thought we missed an opportunity to get more golds and silvers. So I've got a series that I'm going to be working on with that too. My boy Bennett is helping me get all the ratings together. That will start next week with Baltimore. We're going to go in order of how the teams are listed in MLB The Show, starting with the AL East. So Baltimore is going to be first in both of these series. And we're going to go ahead and get into the Baltimore Legends right now. And this is one that I've been asking for a while. He would actually work for two different teams, and it's Frank Robinson. Now, Frank Robinson, if you aren't familiar, was an absolute monster. He won an MVP in both leagues. His 1966 MVP with Baltimore included a .316 average, 1047 OPS, 49 homers, and 8 stolen bases thrown in. So you might have a little speed, a little steal in there. Nothing too crazy, but shouldn't be too much of a slug on the base paths. You see his 6 years with Baltimore. For total, he put up a 300, 401, 543 with 36 homers per 162. That's insane. That's like an MVP caliber season every year that he was averaging. There's like a whole idea, if you go 300, 400, 500, you're an MVP candidate, and that's what he was doing regularly. Like I said, also elite with Cincinnati. Played some time other places too, Cleveland and LA, I believe. So there's like some gold potential too that we could have, and maybe a bronze card in there at the very beginning of his career or very tail end with Cleveland perhaps too. But Frank Robinson, I think, would be a great addition. He was an ambassador in the game. One of the first black managers. I don't know if he was the very first, but he's incredible, and I think he'd be a great addition. One of my dad's favorite players too, so I always grew up hearing about him, knowing about him, and so I'd love to see him in the game. Next up is another one that's probably a little obvious, but we haven't seen him yet. That's Mike Mussina, one of the best pitchers for the Baltimore Orioles ever, and then also stayed in division and went to the Yankees and kicked butt there. So you could really get two diamond cards there. Now, he wasn't an elite strikeout guy compared to today, but that's why we have numbers like K percentage plus, and it works like OPS plus, WRC plus, all those other categories that we have usually for offense. Oh, there's ERA plus as well, but the plus means that it adjusts to the era that they were in. For example, in like the late 80s, early 90s, the league leaders, well, outside like Nolan Ryan, he was kind of in his own world, but a lot of the stud pitchers of the day, they struck out like 6 batters per 9. That would get you laughed out of the room today unless you had amazing command and didn't walk anybody. Like Dallas Keuchel can be around there sometimes, but it's rare. Like the guys stand out if they have that low of a strikeout total. So you got to do an adjustment there, and he was actually at a 147 K percentage plus in 1997, one of his best years, meaning that he was 47% better than league average. BB percentage works the other way. You want a lower number, because that means that if you're at 67%, that you are 33% better than league average. So that's how that works there. And so you see the fantastic strikeout and walk numbers, 7.8 hits per 9 in 225 innings. Another good thing about some of these guys pitching in the 80s and 90s, their staminas will be a bit higher than the guys that we see today. And that'll help us use them deeper into ranked seasons games. He led the American League in innings in 2000. He led it in walks in 1995, and as I mentioned, he would have an elite diamond for the Yankees too, and some gold and silver potential with Baltimore. So a really diverse card that they can get for 2 different teams and 3 different levels. There might even be a bronze in there, although I think he was pretty good throughout his entire career, that maybe silver would be the lowest he goes. All right, next up is a guy who stays in the baseball minds for one thing, and that's his 1996. That's Brady Anderson. I wish I could explain to those who weren't there. I don't know what the comp is for today. of a season that comes this far out of nowhere as his 50 homer season. But in 1996, Brady Anderson hit 297 with a 1034 OPS, 50 homers, and 21 steals. He was a good player before this. He was like a solid player, but this was another level. I mean, no matter what, when you hit 50 homers, you're a badass. Even in the steroid era, hitting 50 was still cool. A lot more guys were doing it, but it's not like, it wasn't the same as hitting like 20. 20 was what the lower tier guys were hitting. 50 always had impact, and there is heavy suspicion that he might have used a little help to get there because of how he went right back down to earth the following year and went back to being kind of his speed defense type of guy. But that season lives on forever, and it would make a hell of an MLB The Show card. Like I said, great speed, solid defender, better versus righties, and he could run the gamut. Diamond, gold, silver, bronze. You could really get every type of card out of Brady Anderson. I think he'd be really fun to have in the game. And if he did come in the game, we'd just be waiting for that 50 homer card. When's the 96 Brady Anderson coming out? Is it something that they would release early? Would he be like a pre-order type of card? Because it would be a high diamond, but I don't know if it'd be like a 99 necessarily. So I do wonder if we could ever get Brady Anderson, because he's more than just that year. People act like he was garbage before and after. That overstates it. This was an outlier season of epic proportions, but it wasn't like he was a total loser before and after. He was just more of like a solid mid-tier player. Next up, Melvin Mora. Melvin Mora, left field, right field, but also a little lineup diversity here. 2004, he had an excellent season. 340 average, 981 OPS, 27 homers, 11 steals. He played 150 games in his career at third, short, left, center, 25 plus at second, right, and first. So depending on the seasons of cards that they gave us, we could have a lot of positional flexibility with Melvin Mora. And if he had one of those clutch swings, which he just strikes me as the kind of guy, I have no basis for this other than the player type that he is and the way those player types sometimes can translate in MLB. He just strikes me as somebody who could become one of those gods who plays over his numbers. And every tier of card that he has plays even better. This bronze card plays like a silver or gold. His silver card plays like a gold or diamond, and so on and so forth. Obviously, a diamond only can play like a diamond, but I think he'd have a good card at every level. He was better versus lefties as a right-handed hitter, but he did have great seasons against right-handers in 03, 04, and 05. We would definitely get an 04 card, but if we got an 03 or 05, it would still be pretty balanced as well. And then some of the lower tier cards would be tilted toward lefties, but he wouldn't be totally inept against righties. I think you could still certainly use him against both sides of the plate, maybe outside of like a bronze or silver card. The silver card might just be too heavy toward the lefty. Although, if he plays over his numbers, like I said, maybe he would have lesser numbers, and it'd be like Ian Happ. Ian Happ, his numbers against lefties aren't that good, but he kills. Everyone uses Ian Happ in BR because he absolutely dominates. And while Melvin Mora was not a switch hitter, that's the kind of card that I'm thinking of that Melvin Mora could be as a silver. Multi-positional, play over his numbers, and just absolutely dominant. So I think he'd be a real fun one for sure. And then finally for the Baltimore Orioles, we got another pitcher, and we're going to go relief style here with Armando Benitez. Armando Benitez was a monster, and he was that kind of that Lee Smith type. Now, Lee Smith was a Hall of Famer. Armando Benitez wasn't. But in terms of that imposing closer, that guy that you're scared of coming out, like making these grown men be legitimately scared of somebody, Armando Benitez could do that. And there's two things that you got to have with that. You got that imposing figure, well, maybe three things. That imposing figure and kind of a no-smile demeanor out there, big fastball, and you don't really know where it's going to go all the time. And I think Armando Benitez had all of those aspects. He threw hard, but sometimes we don't know where it's going. And that's terrifying. It doesn't matter if you're the MVP and you're some badass player. Nobody wants to get hit by 95 plus. It does not matter how tough you are, how much you can take it. You still don't freaking want it. You know, it's like a running back who can take the hit from the crushing safety or crushing linebacker. He still doesn't want it. He's still going to dip out of bounds when he can, although some guys actually invite contact because they're crazy out there. But you don't want to mess with Armando Benitez. He was known to get into some brawls from time to time as well, just by chucking the ball at guys. I don't really condone chucking the ball at guys, but sometimes he threw at guys because he didn't know where the hell it was going to go. So you got the huge fastball, you got a solid changeup and slider. So you be the 3-pitch guy, that would totally work. 193 K percentage plus with Baltimore. That was the third best among relievers. That's his entire career with Baltimore. So we're going to get insane K9 numbers with him and really good hit 9 numbers. 6.3 hits per 9 with Baltimore. That was 6th best among relievers for the time that he was with Baltimore. So excellent Ks, excellent hits. The BB9 and the control would be challenged. And so that would be the tough part about him. You wouldn't always be able to spot the ball. But I think there would also be diamond, gold, and silver opportunities here with Armando Benitez. He also had some good time with the Mets. He bounced around to other places too. So there's a lot of card diversity capability with Benitez as well, to where his best card could be a ranked seasons guy and his mid-tier cards could be BR guys. But I think Armando Benitez would be a really fun addition. And now, even though this is going on YouTube as well as doing it on Twitch, I do now want to turn it over to my Twitch chat to see some of the guys that maybe I didn't pick for Baltimore that you would have liked to see me cover. Because obviously every team has more than 5 candidates, but who are some Baltimore Orioles that you'd love to see come in the game as legends? JJ Hardy. Oh my gosh, if Hardy comes back, I really would be looking for his Milwaukee card. But I loved J.J. Hardy. That was an absolute fun card. And he had some good years with Baltimore too, so you could really do both, for sure. I'm trying to think, and obviously there's older guys too. I kind of have focused, I mean, Frank Robinson's a legend from the 60s and 70s, but my main focus with this project is going to zero in on the 90s and 2000s. Miguel Tejada, that's a good call. And again, he's like a Mike Mussina. He's a double dip where he'd have great Oakland and great Baltimore. Sidney Ponson. BJ Surhoff's a good one because he would have catcher eligibility for some of his cards. Jim Palmer's already in the game, but don't forget the other guys that they had. What was it? Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, Jim Palmer, and there was one other. There was one year where they had 4 guys win 20 games, and I always forget the other guy. And I feel bad because I always forget it. Well, yeah, Malkin, you're right. Malkin mentioned Sammy Sosa, but he'll be, spoiler alert, he's going to be on another team. Like, it's not even a spoiler. It's a no-duh. It's a no-duh that he's going to be on the Cubs. Fields, thank you so much for the 25 months. Chris Davis is already in the game. Rafael Palmeiro, that was probably my first cut. He was 6th, and he was one of those guys. And the only reason I didn't put him is I don't know how they feel about him, really. And, you know, Jason Giambi admitted to PEDs, and he's in the game. And so that, you know, I don't know that they're completely out on PED guys, but Palmeiro never really admitted to it. So I don't know. Do we have any guys that aren't current players that have come in as legends that were PED issues? I don't really know. Shut up, Wheel. I'm not even saying that. RJK, he's for a different team. Blue Buck, so is he. Blue Powell's a good one. That's an old school one. Oh, I got another one. If Palmeiro was 6, this guy was 7. His name's Paul Blair. If you're not familiar with them, Young Bucks, go look him up. Amazing center fielder for the Orioles. We're talking like Kevin Kiermaier-esque defensive numbers. And then there's a few good seasons in there too to get some offense, but that would not be his strength. The defense and speed would be his strength, and then there's a few seasons in there where you can get some pretty good batting numbers, but Paul Blair would be pretty fun. Arthur Rhodes, another good reliever, and he played for like a billion teams, so they could make cards of him all over the place. Harold Baines, Hall of Famer. I know I'm in the group that, you know, is a little sus on that, but you know, here's the thing with that. The Veterans Committee got him in. And if I ever was voting for the Hall of Fame and he had come up, I would not have voted him in. But for me, once a guy's in, no matter what means they got in, I'm not here to crap on that because it's not his fault that he got voted in. Like, it's not. They voted him in. What's he supposed to say? No thanks. I don't deserve it. So I border on, like, I respect that people bring it up and talk about how it's not the best inclusion, but I don't want it to turn into, you know, crapping all over Harold Baines. Scott Erickson did have some good years, and he would work for Minnesota too. So it'd be a couple different guys, or a couple different teams that you could go with Scott Erickson. And I'm sure there's tons of others. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up the YouTube video here for the Baltimore Orioles. Leave your names in the comment below of guys that you would like to see, legends for Baltimore that could be in the game. Don't forget, though, they probably have to have some sort of diamond capability to really be somebody that SDS would want to go after. So they don't have to be the top of the scale player, but there has to be something in there to make it where it's not just like one card and that's it. You know, and it can be a postseason too. Sometimes a guy, his regular seasons maybe are only gold and silver worthy, but he had a diamond worthy playoff. Well, that would still make for a good legend in the game. So this is just the start of the series. We'll have Boston out next time. I will say that they got 6 players. Some teams got 6 players because of the richness of their history. Baltimore does have a rich history, but the recent history, the one that I was zeroed in on, the 80s through 2000s, late 80s really, when I started following baseball, I didn't have as many candidates. I mean, I could have put Palmeiro on here. I think the truth of the matter is I could have put 6 for them, but I decided when I was already in it, and I'd already done Baltimore's, that I was going to have some teams with 6. I could have gone back and put him on, but feasibly I could have put Palmeiro on there. Some teams will only have 5 for sure because it was hard to even get the 5, Tampa Bay. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hit a like, hit a subscribe. A lot more stuff coming. I know I took a long time off on YouTube, but I'll be having this series going, and then I'll have the golds and silver flashbacks starting next week with Baltimore as well. And thank you so much for watching.